In the age of blockbuster superhero franchises, DC has always been somewhat lacking. Apart from Christopher Nolan's superb Batman trilogy, DC's other attempts have either fallen flat or fallen really, really hard. Now, in the wake of Marvel's The Avengers and its billion-dollar payday, DC now has the obligation to comic fans around the world to try and cobble together a Justice League movie. Or at least something better than Green Lantern. With Nolan helping out on both production and marketing fronts, DC has handed the reins of directing Man of Steel over to Zack Snyder, who has a lot to prove after disappointing audiences with Sucker Punch and maybe Watchmen, depending on who you ask. This movie had a lot to prove, and it would be a daunting task for anyone trying to take a superhero who in recent years has somewhat lost his splendor and symbolic prowess. I mean, how do you care about a guy who is nigh unstoppable when you could care about more realistic superheroes like Batman and the $682 million required to buy all of his neat gadgets? Anyway, this movie certainly has its heart in the right place, trying to define Superman in a way that's both old and new. Perhaps the biggest departure from the comics is Kal-El's new origin in the fall of Krypton. In this movie, Krypton was a dying civilization long before its imminent implosion, and Russell Crowe's Jor-El hopes to give his son a future that the planet could never give him. Upon arriving on Earth, Kal is instantly recognized as different, and his adopted father, Jonathan Kent, does everything he can to try and teach this alien to control his powers, fearing the power he has while also hoping that one day the world will accept him. Eventually, Kal discovers his birthright. Just in time, too, because the military-minded General Zod has come to Earth seeking to exterminate the heretic he believes Clark to be. Also thrown into the mix is Lois Lane, because this is a Superman movie, so we need Lois Lane. That's not really a criticism, but an observation, as she really exists to allow the audience a window into discovering the power of Superman while he's also finding his own powers. And that's what this movie is really about, Clark Kent discovering how to accept his destiny, even in the face of adversity and some pretty harrowing circumstances. The performances in this film are top-notch, with special mention going to Kevin Costner and Michael Shannon, who's kind of made a career for himself out of playing villains who don't think they're villains. The two major fight scenes in the movie are also very well done, with some inventive ways of showing some great action that can honestly be referred to as superpowered dudes hitting each other really, really hard. Hans Zimmer's score also shines out, mainly because I was relieved they didn't try and go back and use the John Williams Superman march, which has frankly ascended to unattainable levels of awesome. However, the movie does have some noticeable flaws. All those scenes you remember from the trailer that try to harken you back to a simpler time when you were a kid are somewhat out of place here, since the movie doesn't want to dwell on them very long. Yes, Zach, they're very poignant, but the movie's 2.5 hours long. Do we really need them? Also, the rest of the Daily Planet staff isn't really given anything to do aside from a first-hand point of view of the Metropolis attack at the end. But perhaps the biggest problem is that the movie wants to do a whole lot more than it actually conveys, a flaw that tends to pop up a lot in Snyder's work. It wants to be a new status quo for Superman, it wants to be the definitive superhero blockbuster, it wants to be an emotional powerhouse, but it's really just a good superhero movie, but maybe not the game changer that a lot of people, myself included, were hoping for. Overall, I still think it's worth seeing, just don't expect another Dark Knight or Iron Man. See you next time.